So, I'm currently usually do this thing of like, oh look, here's my favorite thing of this. And there's a lot of like really early ones because when it starts becoming serialized, it starts dealing with the more villains. And I might actually do a couple of things that I feel like focus a lot on specific things, which I think does actually happen and is something that does come up a bit during the later ones, that because you have some people who might last a couple of episodes, which if you even deal with the episodes I have deal with up to season 3, you've only had a couple of two-parters. And I'm going to mention my favorite, and I was thinking about doing tomorrow my second favorite, because there are a couple of episodes that I want to talk about, but I want to just rewatch it in a bit before I talk about it, so I don't again. I have legitimately reviewed all of it and watched all of it, but I am just going to rewatch it. One, do you really want me to have an excuse? I'm not gonna be like, one, this reason, one, and the only reason I want to rewatch Criminal Minds that you can't stop me. Obviously, I said this before, this is bad timing because they had the whole Jimmy Kimmel thing, which is fair and valid. I also like the way that Jimmy Kimmel was like, yeah, I need to just read like a sheet of paper being like, to reactivate your I'm like, duh. He knew, and I just salute. Anyway, I want to watch Criminal Minds because I love the show, and I'm not going to re-review the whole thing, but one thing I wanted to talk about was, in my opinion, the best two-parter that deals... It's not my favourite through either one of them as individuals, because legitimately Derek Morgan, I've already done 2 videos that I feel like did it better, and if I had to do part 3, which legitimately I have one for part 3 left of Derek Morgan, one for the person who left, which is his final episode, and one for another person who left, which is earlier, who was later taken on by Emily Prentice. But again, that's not this episode. Those 3 episodes might come out the next 3 days, and then I'll do the other 2-parters. But I want to talk about this because I just rewatched this 2-parter, and I like it. Obviously, I watched Kingfisher, but Kingfisher I think is the second best, and I want to do some of the characters one first, and this one I think is fun, which is essentially the 2-parter that goes from season 3 to season 4. Why do I like it? Because one, the first part deals with interesting character development for Derek Morgan. He's in conflict because he might be the one person looked at this. And then the second part deals with the person, that's the only person I don't remember the name of, the sort of like head of the BAU at the time. And sort of someone who sort of looks after the crew, and both of those things for both characters are really good. You're dealing with someone dealing with the idea of maybe he should be there, and having someone look at him really intensely because of that, and maybe that should be like something interesting of like, oh, should he be put? She does, spoiler alert, she dies in the second part, which is really interesting because what she does I think is a really interesting narrative, because and then later on, because he is the first responder and trying to deal with the situation, he's trying to deal with both her being in a critical situation and nearly dying, and then the situation that he's like, oh, this was the plan. And the one reason why I like it is because you enter the thing and you get, we've had a couple of people being shot down in the middle of broad daylight. Okay? It's odd. It's interesting. You know there's something more to this because that's unusual. Okay? And then it's like, cult activity. Maybe it's an initiation ritual. I'm not going to talk about how that works, but that's an idea that's thrown out. And then you get something like the card that sort of shows, and this is one thing that very sort of message. But then it's really interesting. And then one person brings it up. And by the way, this is dark wording and dark theming. Just be warned. 3, 2, 1. Terrorism. And I like it. I really do. Because the first episode, for the most part, until like I think near the end, deals with the situation of like this is either some ritual or even just one guy, and then just makes it bigger and bigger and bigger until the final episode, one of the SUVs that the FBI have been using blows up. Who? What? And then it deals with part 1 of how that happened, how you react to it, and how we're dealing with this current threat. And because it's only one, it must be bigger. And then when you deal with the thing with the sort of like the person from the MI5 going to the New York police station and having that have a sort of be having her rescued by a sort of the first responder of like the civilian who like, oh yeah, I'm coming here to help. He's the one who did it, and then the medical officer who came in, he was also involved, and he was actually calling him. It's insane, because for like the first part, it gets bigger and bigger and bigger, and things get in the way. But the one thing that I like in the second part, because the first part is good by building up this tension, building up what is actually happening, each reveal making it more dramatic and more serious. Definitely when you get like this reveal of like, wait, the guy stopped? What? Because he did, and then it's like, it's more and more and more. And then when you get to part 2, it's in your face. You get one guy who's standing by the person who, that makes sense. Sometimes you would stay around. But when he's about to leave, he sort of hovers. Which I like, because we know that he's involved. That's not the important part. But when you see, go. And I look, it's like he's hovering, it's like, wait, what? And this is when Derek Morgan is told by Perry Garcia that information. And the one thing I like is some of the information is, that makes sense. They would do that. That would make sense. But until you think about it, not as a sort of like logical way, but you don't think about why that should not make sense. It's like, oh yeah, an ambulance just came in. It's like, oh yeah, my partner didn't leave. My partner didn't want to break the rules. So I just came in by myself. It's like, okay, just a rogue person doing things by himself. And then when you get that, again, this is going to be long, the longest one of this. But I like it. Because it builds and builds and builds. And when you get the final boom, you're trying to figure out where the pieces fall. And that is the best way I can describe these two-parters. Having a mystery, build until, bad wording, but I'm going to use it anyway, it blows up in their faces. It is so insane. I also legitimately thought, when I first watched it, that they were going to kill off Derek Morgan. He does leave at some point, I do fully admit that, but I legitimately thought he was dead. It's like, because they do this thing, it's like, I'm alive. I'm like, so that's, because they do this thing of like, boom. And I'm like, okay, that's the one thing which I find is very odd. They're not going to do a thing of like, boom. I think that would be better than da-da! But yeah, I do love this. It's insane. It's mad. But it's of a time, and absolutely one of the best two-parter. Well, the best two-parter. But yeah, good night.